The rain fell in soft sheets over the small elementary school, turning the playground into a blur of puddles and reflections. Inside, the cafeteria buzzed with the usual noise of lunchtime, children laughing, trays clattering, teachers chatting in between sips of coffee. Ethan Cole, one of the country's youngest billionaires, walked quietly behind the school principal. His tailored suit and polished shoes looked almost out of place among the colorful posters and sticky floors. He wasn't there for publicity, he'd come unannounced to see where the donated laptops from his foundation had gone, to see if they were truly helping the kids who needed them. As they moved through the rows of tables, something unusual caught Ethan's eye. In the far corner, away from the chatter and laughter, sat a little girl with chestnut brown hair tied neatly in 2 braids. Her clothes were clean but worn, and her shoes were slightly too big, as if they'd been passed down a few times. Ethan watched as she carefully opened a small pink lunchbox. He expected to see a sandwich or maybe some fruit, but it was completely empty. The girl didn't seem surprised. Instead, she reached into her pocket, took out a tiny folded paper heart, and placed it gently inside the box as if it were something precious. That simple act stopped Ethan in his tracks. He wasn't sure why, but it tugged at something deep inside him, a feeling he hadn't known in years. "Who's that?" he asked softly. The principal smiled sadly. "That's Lily. Sweet girl. Her mom works long hours. Some days she forgets to bring lunch, but she never complains." Ethan's gaze lingered on her as she sat quietly, pretending to chew invisible food so no one would notice she wasn't eating. Around her, children traded snacks and giggled. She just smiled at them, as if she didn't want anyone to feel bad for her. Something about that quiet bravery, that gentle dignity, broke through the walls of his wealth and success. For the first time in a long while, Ethan didn't see numbers or business deals, he saw a story unfolding before him. And he had no idea it was one that would change his life forever. Ethan hesitated for a moment before walking toward Lily's table. The other children were laughing and trading cookies, but she sat quietly, tracing little shapes on her lunchbox with her finger. "Hey there," he said gently, trying not to startle her. "Mind if I sit with you?" Lily looked up, her big brown eyes blinking with surprise. "You can," she said softly, her voice barely louder than a whisper. Ethan sat down, placing his coffee aside. "I'm Ethan," he said with a friendly smile. "I'm visiting your school today." She nodded politely. "I'm Lily." He noticed again, the lunchbox sitting open, still empty except for that small folded paper heart. "That's a nice lunchbox," he said, trying to sound casual. "What's inside?" Lily looked down at it, then back up at him. "Nothing today," she said with a tiny shrug. "But it's okay." Ethan's heart tightened. "Aren't you hungry?" Lily paused. She seemed to weigh whether or not to tell him the truth. Finally, she whispered, "I'm a little hungry. But I'm saving my lunch money." "For what?" he asked gently. She smiled faintly, as if sharing a secret. "For my mom." Ethan leaned in. "For your mom?" Lily nodded. "She works really hard. Sometimes she doesn't eat dinner so I can. I'm saving up to buy her a big meal one day, something special. Like a real birthday dinner. With cake." Ethan's chest ached. He glanced at the paper heart again and asked, "And that? What's that for?" She smiled proudly. "That's my promise to her. I write her one every week. I tell her I love her and that one day I'll buy her all the food she wants. She keeps them in a box under her bed." Ethan couldn't speak. His throat burned, and for the first time in years, he didn't have the right words. In front of him sat a little girl with nothing, but her heart was richer than anyone he'd ever met. As the lunch bell rang and the children rushed out, Ethan stayed there, staring at the pink lunchbox. He knew in that moment, he couldn't just walk away. The rain had stopped outside, leaving the windows streaked with silver trails. Most of the students had gone out for recess, but Ethan stayed behind, still thinking about Lily's words. Something about her quiet strength haunted him, the way she smiled through hunger, the way her hope felt bigger than her pain. He found her sitting near the window, humming softly to herself. The pink lunchbox sat beside her, neatly closed. "Hey, Lily," he said, approaching with a gentle smile. "Can I ask you something?" She nodded shyly. "I was just wondering," Ethan began carefully, "could I take another look at your lunchbox?" For a moment, she hesitated, as if it held something too personal to share. But then she slowly unlatched it and turned it toward him. Inside, Ethan saw more than he expected. There was a tiny paper heart, folded with care, the same one she had placed inside earlier. Beneath it lay 3 crumpled dollar bills, a few coins, and a hand-drawn picture colored in bright crayons. The drawing showed a smiling woman holding hands with a little girl beneath a rainbow. In the corner, written in shaky, uneven letters, were the words, "For Mommy's birthday dinner." Ethan froze. The world around him seemed to fade away. He touched the edge of the paper, his fingers trembling. "Did you draw this?" he asked softly. Lily nodded proudly. "That's me and Mommy. I'm saving money so we can go to a real restaurant one day." She's never been to one before. Ethan felt a sting behind his eyes. He'd spent millions on things that didn't matter, luxury cars, penthouse art, parties that blurred into emptiness. And here was a little girl finding joy in coins and a dream. He closed the box carefully, his voice almost breaking. "Lily, that's the most beautiful gift I've ever seen." She grinned, her cheeks dimpling. "I just want Mommy to be happy." As Ethan stood there, he realized, he hadn't just opened a lunchbox. He'd opened a window into a love so pure, it stripped away everything he thought he knew about wealth. In that moment, he knew one thing for certain, he was going to change this little girl's life. That evening, Ethan couldn't shake the image of Lily's empty lunchbox from his mind. Her drawing, those folded paper hearts, her quiet courage, they stayed with him long after he left the school. Back in his sleek office overlooking the city, Ethan sat in silence. The glowing skyline reflected on the glass wall behind him, but for the first time, it didn't feel impressive. It felt empty. He thought about his own childhood, how his mother used to work late shifts, how there were days when dinner was just a slice of bread and a story to make it feel full. Somewhere along the way, he had buried those memories under layers of success and pride. The next morning, Ethan made a few calls. Not to his board or investors, but to the school principal. He wanted to know everything about Lily's family. By evening, he was standing in front of a small, weathered apartment complex on the outskirts of town. The door opened to a tired but kind-faced woman, Lily's mother, Grace. Her eyes widened when she saw the billionaire standing at her doorstep, holding a small pink lunchbox. "Ms. Grace," Ethan said gently, "I met your daughter yesterday. She told me about you, and about her dream." Grace's eyes filled with tears instantly. "Oh God," she whispered. "She told you that?" Ethan nodded. "She loves you deeply. And she reminded me of something I'd forgotten, what real love looks like." He stepped forward and handed her an envelope. Inside was the paperwork for a trust fund for Lily's education, ensuring her future would be secure. Alongside it, a business proposal, funding and resources to help Grace open her own bakery, something she'd always wanted to do but never could. Grace covered her mouth, sobbing softly. "Why would you do this for us?" Ethan smiled gently. "Because your daughter gave me something money can't buy, perspective. This isn't charity, Grace. It's gratitude." Months later, the bakery opened on a sunny spring morning. Its name, written in pink letters across the sign, read, "The Pink Lunchbox Café." And every customer who walked in was served with warmth, love, and a story that began with a little girl's empty lunchbox. Years passed, and the world changed, but one small bakery on the corner of Maple Street remained a constant source of warmth and light. Its pink sign shimmered in the morning sun, the Pink Lunchbox Café. Inside, the air smelled of fresh bread, cinnamon rolls, and hope. Laughter filled the room as families gathered at the wooden tables, children colored on napkins, and the smell of coffee wrapped around everyone like a gentle hug. On the counter sat a small glass box filled with paper hearts, hundreds of them, folded neatly by hand. Each one carried a message of kindness, love, or gratitude from customers who had heard the cafe's story. And there, near the front window, sat Lily, older now, her braids replaced by a messy bun, her smile still as bright as ever. She worked beside her mother, Grace, who now wore a white apron dusted with flour and pride. Every morning, before the cafe opened, Lily would place one small folded paper heart inside a pink lunchbox that sat on a shelf. It was a quiet ritual, a promise to never forget where it all began. Across the country, Ethan Cole had become more than just a billionaire. He was now known as the man whose heart was changed by a child's kindness. In interviews, when journalists asked him about his greatest investment, he always smiled and said, "Greater than, it wasn't in stocks or companies. It was in a little girl's empty lunchbox. She taught me that true wealth isn't what you have, it's what you give. Sometimes, Ethan would visit the cafe. He'd sit quietly in the corner, watching Grace and Lily serve customers, laughing together, living a life built on love. He never needed recognition, just the quiet joy of seeing hope flourish. One rainy afternoon, much like the day they first met, Lily brought him a small box wrapped in ribbon. Inside was a folded paper heart. On it were just 5 simple words. "Thank you for believing first." Ethan's eyes glistened. He realized that the little girl who once had nothing had given him everything. And in that moment, the world felt beautifully full again.